Hello and welcome to Going Over Our Freds, the internet's best podcast. My name is Michael Kennedy, and sitting across from me is...
Meredith Halsey.
And what Fred Olin Ray movie did we watch for today?
Biohazard, a 1985 sci-fi film.
Biohazard, that's the original name of the Resident Evil series. Is this a zombie movie?
No.
No, you had to think about that, though, huh?
Well, some of the makeup could have been mistaken for it, and then I'm never fully confident that I haven't missed something big, especially in a movie as confusing as this one.
Yeah, there were a couple of parts that were just like, oh, you think about it afterwards, and you're like, why did that happen? Who was that guy? Yeah, let's just jump right into this master class of Biohazard. This is actually, I would like to know, this is the oldest Fred Olin Ray movie we've watched so far, because this is the oldest one that is currently available on Tubi for free. So we get to really see a lot of his roots and a lot of the early stock company, because a lot of these actors will show up in other things like The Tomb and Alien Seed and these like early 80s Fred Olin Ray movies. But yeah, let's get us started. How does this movie start? What's happening?
I'm so excited to see the genesis of some of his long-term themes. It starts with a production company screen saying 21st Century Presents. And immediately my husband was in a kerfuffle. He's like, wait, what's going on? Are they trying to get some borrowed glory from 20th century films? And then we had this pause and go back, and it's not. It just says 21st Century Presents.
It's the real estate company that's presenting it, right?
I guess so. And then we get launched right into an extended credit scene that is basically illegible. It's a black screen with a green grid and kind of like a heartbeat pumping in the middle of it with white text over all of that.
And it's so confusing because it looks like a radar screen, but it also has the heart monitor in the middle. And I'm like, pick one. That's too many.
Like, what are we doing here? What is this trying to set us up for? And in the end, really not much to do with anything in the movie. It just lasts way too long.
Oh, I was saying, introducing something that is confusing and will have nothing to do with the movie is going to be a recurring theme in Biohazard.
Yes. Well, and also in all of Fred Olin Ray's movies. Isn't that?
Almost, yeah.
So our opening scene is we get a U.S. Army truck driving in the desert, and they're lost and late to where they're going. And where they're going is like a remote research laboratory. I read this as two Army guys, and my husband Frank turns to me and says, why is one of them a Boy Scout? So my husband was in the Boy Scouts, and then describes to me like what the guy's wearing is a Boy Scout uniform, so like green pants and khaki shirt. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. They probably didn't have any budget for costumes.
Yeah, the budget of this movie was complicated. I read a little bit about it online, where the original backers kind of pulled all their money out after they had already shot about $15,000 worth of footage. And then somebody else like ended up putting money in, and then I think all in all the budget was, oh god, I wanted to say like 70,000, but maybe it was 700,000. I really just forgot all about that. But it was like they had a lot of problem with investment, which happens a lot in these Fred Olin Ray movies. Which you did think you just gather up enough money, you shoot in a weekend, and you don't even leave anybody time to pull the money out. So
yeah, it was odd. And most of the actors did seem to be in a bring your own wardrobe situation, which normally is fine, but when you're trying to establish that there's characters who belong to a military organization, maybe not so fine. Anyhow, Boy Scout and Guy, who's also in the Army, but he's just dressed completely casually. Guy is named Mitchell, and they're on their way to this remote research laboratory.
Now, I'm glad you caught that guy's name right away, because we introduce so many generic-looking brown-haired dudes in this movie that I could not keep track of who was who.
There's too many characters, and they're all named.
And, like, two of them kind of have personalities?
Barely. We get a glimpse of a man kind of in a hazmat suit, just like a white hazmat suit. He's walking in the desert. He's got a Geiger counter, which looks straight out of Star Trek, and he's looking for something. He finds a large cable in the desert, It's kind of like the cabling that you'd see at a rock concert if you're behind the scenes where you ought not to be.
What's this guy's name?
I'm pretty sure his name is Richard.
Wow, you beat me to it, because that guy just wanders around the desert looking for something until eventually he has a payoff that has nothing to do with anything, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah. One thing that I took note of, that I was like, oh, I wonder if this was a choice or just a result of money getting pulled out. The camera work on Richard in the hazmat suit is just shaky cam, just like badly done. And I was like, oh, is this a choice? Are we looking through some sort of like point of view? No, just for his scenes, somebody's just shaking.
Because you're in the desert and it's handheld. Like, I don't think there's any reason beyond that. He might be zoomed in a little bit, which makes the shaking even worse.
Yeah, it could be. Anyway, that's the thing. We're going to cut to another scene, and we're in the laboratory, and there's an experiment in process. Okay, so anybody who's gone to a 101 level psych class is familiar with this experiment. There's a woman, her name is Lisa. She is not able to see an image on a card, but the experiment is, can she guess what the image is, even though she can't see it? So she correctly guesses.
We've all seen Ghostbusters. It's the Ghostbusters experiment. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. It's like a standard experiment of like, do you have psychic abilities? Lisa is the psychic. She has become psychic as a result of an experimental drug that was given to her after she was in a bad accident. That makes sense. I'm sure we've all been given experimental drugs in the hospital without our knowledge. Anyway.
I didn't even catch the experimental drug. I was in a car accident.
The drug was to help her heal. Anyway, so we have a head scientist. He's really excited about her powers. He's like, with her powers, I can do all sorts of like cool things. And the audience for this work are a gaggle of guys. I would say middle-aged, but they look older to my eyes now that we're middle-aged. But I'm sure in 1985 they were.
There was a lot more smoking and, a lot less sunscreen back then.
Yeah, so a couple of the audience are U.S. senators, one's a general, there's another guy, whatever.
Yeah. The general is kind of the big star of the movie. I think he gets top billing. The general is Aldo Ray, and not related to Fred Olen Ray. He's actually a Golden Globe nominated actor for his work. He was in Pat and Mike, which is an old Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy movie where, Katharine Hepburn is like a female athlete who can't play when her love interest is, near her. But anyway, he's third billed in that. So he's third billed next to Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy, which is amazing. But then he kind of took the Cameron Mitchell career trajectory of just making schlock for the last 20, 30 years of his life.
Okay.
So I thought for a second, have I introduced him in another movie we've done in this podcast? And I have not. But I am remembering when I showed Hollywood Cop on a movie night, he's one of the stars of Hollywood Cop, which is from the makers of Samurai Cop, which is one of these terrible movies. That's the one where I think the family is kidnapped and held in a house the entire time, and the Hollywood Cop has to go and rescue them, and it's really bad, but not as fun as Samurai Cop. But but anyway, I mean, we also have another big star in this movie, which is Art Payton, who is the Dr. Whatever, who has all of 8 IMDb credits. But one of them is for Never Too Young to Die, which, if you've ever seen Never Too Young to Die, that is an amazing spy movie where everyone's favorite James Bond, George Lazenby, he's a super spy who's kidnapped, and he has to be rescued by his son, played by John Stamos, who teams up with Vanity to fight the evil Gene Simmons.
What?
Yeah, so Art Payton has a small role in that, playing a minister.
A minister? I thought he really nailed the evil scientist look, and then he didn't turn out to be very evil at all.
No, and he's so bad. The acting in this movie is so bad.
Yeah. So the doctor, his name is Dr. Williams. He's advocating for using Lisa's powers. And specifically, they make this logical leap from Lisa can guess correctly the image on a card that she cannot see to Lisa can, with the power of her mind, reach into a different dimension and pull in matter to our dimension.
Yeah, point A to point H, like normal.
As proof, they pointed to a large trunk and they were like, yeah, she pulled this in last night. Here's irrefutable evidence. And there's a sculpture, like a ceramic sculpture on top of it. And he's like, yeah, these two things, she just pulled it in. Like, isn't it amazing?
One of them is a big sci-fi trunk, and the other one is like the size of a Precious Moments figurine, like a version of Rodin's The Thinker or Michelangelo's David or something like that,
Yeah.
like you'd see in a lawn. Just like,
Yeah.
Did they just go to the dollar store and pick something up? Why would another dimension have a sculpture of a human? Nah.
It doesn't make any sense. So this is important. I'm going to like touch on it very briefly.
Uh-huh.
They attempt to do a live demonstration and pull in another chunk of matter from this other dimension. It goes wrong because remember Richard in the hazmat suit?
Uh-huh.
He was out there to repair a cable because that cable was important for the experiment. He fixes like one
That
bit
is
of
conjecture. That is not in the movie. He is out there for... Why would he be looking for a cable hole with a Geiger counter? He is just out there. Her powers cause a shortage, and he gets electrocuted for some reason, and we never hear or see about him again.
Yeah, he is killed by the power of her mind.
He is there to add an extra 3.5 minutes to this, 65-minute long movie.
I did think that his death scene was amongst the better parts of the movie because it made good use of limited budget and camera work. Because at first it's just like, oh, there's this lightning bolt, he's getting zapped. Then there's like kind of a smoke screen, like literally there's smoke and you can't see what's going on. And then the next scene in the hazmat suit is this cooked, mummified version of him, and that falls over. It looked pretty good.
Yeah, he has a nice zombie face behind his like face mask thing.
Exactly. Okay, but we never hear about that ever again.
No.
Back at the laboratory, the general and the senators are excited about the matter that the trunk and the figurine that have been pulled in from the other dimension. And they're like, okay, pack it up. We're taking it out of here for further study. Dr. Williams is like very upset about this. He's like, you don't have the right to come in here and tell me what to do. Blah, 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 blah. Lisa's like, take me with you. I'm important. I can help explain what's going on. So the army guys, Boy Scout, Mitchell, the senators, the general, other guy, who will become important later, they pack all this stuff up and then they depart the laboratory. So we've got our original army truck, which is hauling the material from the other dimension, and a red Jeep with California plates. And then they have an extended scene of them driving away. It's just like every twist and turn on that road, they were like, let's look at it. Oh, they're going down the road.
Yep, you really get to learn the geography of this that will not be important at all later.
During this extended driving scene, there's also no character development being done.
No.
Like, usually in a movie like this, you'd be like, oh, okay, they're going to get to know each other. We'll learn about some backstory. It'll set things up for later. No, none of it. None of it. It was just super boring.
If memory serves, a little backstory about how Mitchell has something in his past that is keeping him from ascending the ranks in whatever military organization they're supposed to be in.
Okay, sure.
And we eventually establish that he has beef with Rieger, who's one of the other guys. But we've introduced like 15 white dudes at the same time, and all have brown hair or gray hair. So I'm like, I have no idea who any of these people are. I could not even tell which one was the main character.
Oh, yeah, it's completely unclear at this point. Like, maybe Lisa? But then she's not in the driving scene because they left her behind at the lab.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Lisa is the only person who sticks out in this movie, too, because she's almost the only female character in the entire movie.
Nearly. Mm-hmm.
She has a terrible wig. She is clearly, like, in her early 40s, but pretending to be, like, in her late 20s. And she actually has other credits in actual, known things. Like she was in an episode of Star Trek where she taught, Captain Kirk how to be a thrall. She was on like 2 episodes of Get Smart. And then starting in the 80s, she decided to branch out into not just doing Star Trek conventions, but also doing a bunch of pornography. So her name is Angelique Petitjean, and she had like a couple of different porn names, mostly like Angelique and things kind of close to that. Because, why change your porn name up too much when it's not even your real name anyway? Because Angelique Petitjean is the most made-up name ever. I forget what her real name is. It's like, Carolyn Borland or something boring like that.
Well, if you got a good stage name, why mess with it?
Yeah, yeah.
One note about her costuming. There is a point, and I think it's in these early scenes. It's striking. She's in this white bodysuit, and she's got an elastic belt to, give the costume some shape. And she needs this because her breasts are like very, very large. So you have to have like a defined waist to kind of balance it out. Anyway, so she's got this elastic waist cincher that reveals she must be wearing some sort of corset or like very tight girdle because her waist was like way too small for her body, like way too small. And she was just dressed like this to do the experiment. It wasn't like a plot point or anything. It was notable. It was like weird. And then we saw her naked like later on in the movie, and her natural waist is like, she didn't have that unnaturally like cinched waist. And I was wondering like, why? It's interesting. So if you watch it, look for that. For right now, after an exhausting amount of time driving, the container opens and an alien leaps out and kills one of the army guys and then leaps out of the back of the truck and runs away. So,
okay, hold on. How do we build up the suspense and have like shadows or anything like that? Or no, we cut to a shot of an alien attacking whatever young army guy is in the back, just kind of like from a side view, flat shot of waving his arms at the army man. Now, I didn't remember this until after the fact, but they watched this movie on the 50th episode of Best of the Worst on Red Letter Media. And this is one of the 2 movies that caused Rich Evans to coin the phrase coupon shot. Because when you reveal the monster, that's your money shot. But when you fuck up the reveal of the monster so bad, it is your coupon shot.
It's a good burn.
Now, Meredith, what else is notable about this monster?
It does seem like it's a child in a rubber costume.
Yeah, it is a 7-year-old Christopher Ray, the son of Fred Olin Ray.
Not Christopher Olin Ray, to my great disappointment.
Sometimes he is credited as Christopher Olin Ray, but he mostly goes by Christopher Ray. And he is wearing a costume that kind of looks like the Guyver. Do you remember the Guyver, movie with Mark Hamill and like Japanese monsters and stuff? Anyway, it's a pretty good costume, and they don't really show it all too much, but when they do show it, it looks a lot like a 7-year-old child kind of wandering around and swinging his arms at people until they fall over dead.
It's adorable.
It's kind of adorable, yeah.
Yeah, as soon as you realize that there's a child in there, your frame of reference completely changes, and you're like, that actor's doing a very good job.
And I looked up the budget. That's how you keep your budget at $250,000. You have child labor. Yeah. And you only have to make a costume that's like a third the size of a big scary guy. So
the alien creature has escaped. The Jeeps stop for a moment. They're like, oh, you killed the guy. Like, oh, what are we going to do? They head back to the laboratory is what they do. Lisa says through the power of her mind, she could track and find the creature. So she's like, bring me with you. Like, I'm your valuable asset. For reasons, they decide to begin their search at 11 p.m. at night, hours later, because the creature escaped in the full sun of the daylight. While they're waiting for their 11 p.m. search time, Lisa takes Mitchell home with her, and this is where we get to see her body on display, because they decide, well, what are we going to do to pass the time?
I know, I'll take off my shirt and reveal half my nipples.
Yeah, that bra was weird.
It's like peekaboo, like half. It's not like one of the 2 nipples. It's like half of 2 nipples for a total of 1, I guess, mathematically. It's odd.
I mean, it was on purpose just for that scene, but like that, yeah, it was like the sexy bra that you wear when you're expecting somebody to be able to undress you. The color was super weird. Like for a sexy bra like that to be beige, like I don't even understand how something like that got produced.
You really want like, black, white, red. Beige is not a sexy color.
No.
Maybe it was in the 80s. Maybe we were too young.
No way. Absolutely not.
This is my sexy lingerie. It's taupe.
It was taupe. That was the right thing. Anyway, so Mitchell and Lisa are interrupted by a phone call because it's the 80s and you can't just ignore a phone call.
There's not even an answering machine at that point.
No, not at all. And like Lisa's like, don't answer. And Mitchell's like, I'm going, like, we have to answer the phone. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Also, he's antagonizing her the whole time. He doesn't believe that she's got psychic powers. She's like, oh, like, what do you want to do? And he's like, read my mind. And she's like, that's not how it works, asshole. But also, I know you want to have sex, so let's go ahead and do that thing. So who's on the other end of the phone? It's the Boy Scout, because Boy Scout took something else from the alternate dimension container and he brought it home with him because he wanted to get a quick buck. That thing, we'll describe it in a second, is growing. So he's like, oh shit, let me call Lisa because I know Mitchell's there. I have her phone number and say, it's an emergency. Come over. You got to check this thing out.
Now, was the thing in the container growing or the container growing? I thought he was describing the container growing.
The container growing. The thing that he'd pilfered was a different container.
Okay. But we didn't, see its original size. And even his description of it, it's like, well, it was, 12 inches, and now it's 12 and a half inches. And I'm like,
yeah.
Human error.
Yeah. He must have measured it wrong. Anyway, so what it is a constructed cardboard cylinder with some, texture and things on it. Somebody taped some cardboard together and spray painted the thing gold. So that's when we're talking about the growing container, that's what we're talking about. An obvious cardboard prop spray painted gold. And it is exactly as flimsy as it looks. And it is well lit in every scene for no good reason. Lisa and Mitchell are like, okay, it's an emergency. We got to go check out this mysterious growing alien artifact. They leave her place. Lisa's like, wait, I can sense the alien is nearby. And we as the audience completely believe her. The movie is telling the audience she's credible and that the alien is nearby. Mitchell's like, we don't have time for that right now. We got to go do this other thing.
No, this is your priority, guys. Getting the alien is number one.
But it's not 11 p.m., right?
Oh, it's a real stickler for the rules.
It is the army. So they leave. They get in a car and drive. They're on their way to the Boy Scouts house while we, the audience, are now in the shaky cam point of view of the alien who was basically right there. Now, the alien is approaching a guy. So it's at night. The alien approaches this guy. He's working in his garage. The garage door is open. He's tinkering, maybe with a ham radio, whatever, doesn't matter. This guy's name is Roger. Just want to make sure that you know that this is a named character. We think that the alien's going to attack, but Roger gets up because he's got to answer the phone. And his wife, Jenny, isn't answering the phone. So he gets up, goes into the house, answers the phone. The phone's for Jenny. And he's like, where's my wife? Starts knocking on opening doors Jenny, where are you? Turns out Jenny's in the bath and she's has her headphones on, so she couldn't hear the phone. She couldn't hear him. He scares the daylights out of her because he's dramatically pulls. Okay, one, she's in the bath with the shower curtain drawn. Only
in a horror movie would you do that.
And we're hearing splashing, so I'm fully expecting that Jenny has already been attacked and she's drowned. But no. He dramatically pulls the curtain aside, which scares her, as it would if you were doing that. Yeah. And he's like, hey, you got a phone call. And then he's like, hey, mind if I join you? So he gets in the tub with her.
Did we see the underside of her nipples? We're allowed to see the underside of her nipples, right?
Yeah. She's naked in the tub. I think it's a bubble bath, so you can see her breast, but she's full hair, full makeup.
Yeah,
and
like
just in the tub.
you know how you take a bath. You do your hair, you do your makeup, you get in the bath, you close the shower curtain around you.
And you put on your headphones.
Jenny is, of course, portrayed by the great Lauren Crabtree, who made her first nude scene in this movie and made her first and last movie appearance in this movie. She's such a talented actor. Like, it's hard to believe that, right?
She didn't do a terrible job. I mean,
on the curve of this movie, she was like dead in the middle. Yeah.
So Roger gets into the tub, shoes, jeans, shirt, all of it. Then he's like, oh, wait, I gotta go do something in the garage. Gets up, out of the tub, shoes, jeans, shirt, soaked, walks all the way out through the house, through the front door, and into the garage. So, like, who's gonna clean that up?
No one's gonna clean that up. And I would also like to note that Zack Snyder completely ripped off that tub scene for Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, because Henry Cavill gets in the bath with Amy Adams like that, only we don't see Amy Adams' breasts, because Lauren Crabtree is a real actor who will do nudity. Okay?
Okay, but in that movie, is it implied who cleans up after Superman gets out of the bath and soaks the entire surrounding area with, all the water that drips off of him?
I think Crypto licks all the water with his super tongue. I think that's what happens. But only in the director's cut.
It's just like really frustrating because it made a huge fucking mess. And because it's 1985, half of that home is carpeted. So he got the carpet all wet and extra dirty because he's got his shoes on in the house and the shoes are now wet. So like everything is now on the carpet and it's going to smell bad. You'll never get the stains out.
It's the only flaw in this movie. It's the only unanswered question is who cleans that carpet?
Who was supposed to clean the carpet, right? Because we know nobody did. Okay, anyway, all right. Now I'm trying to calm down because it's really not okay. Okay. All right. He goes back to the garage and like picks up his like radio again. It's like as if he's just like, I had a chance for sexy time with my hot wife and I'm just going to go back and finish what I was doing with this hobby. So the alien comes down from above, picks up Roger by like the neck and stuff and does a pretty good job of killing him. Like that 7-year-old, good job.
Yeah, he's like hanging upside down and like drags him up. Like I think that was in one of the Jason movies that he does a kill like that, or maybe a Michael Myers. Like it's a classic. It's a ripoff of a classic slasher movie, but I can't remember which scene right now.
We've probably seen it a bunch of times. It seemed familiar to me, and I was like, okay, good job. Like this little boy did a great job. Got like some blood dripping down. Like adorable, super cute, super cute. Jenny, after some time passes, she's throwing out a rope. She's like calling for Roger. She's like, where the fuck is this guy? And she goes out to the garage. She like sees things in disarray, blood. And she's like, oh no, what's going on? And then Roger's corpse falls and she like collapses to the ground and is screaming in horror. And I think, Michael, that she did a good job of screaming. I think she could have been a scream queen.
Yeah, I mean, she could have shown up in Friday the 13th Part 4 or 5 or 6. Not 7, but definitely
I was
8.
surprised that this is her first and last one because she did like such a good scream. And as she's screaming, drool starts dripping onto her face and she looks up and it's the alien. And so her death is off screen. I just thought that was really good.
Very tasteful, you don't want to do violence against women on screen, so that's...
Well, you'd ruin her hair and makeup.
Yeah, that too. Why did the alien kill that guy?
Because he was there.
Oh, okay.
The alien's got to kill, man. So that's curtains closed for Roger and Lisa. I'm so glad we spent so much time to learn their names.
Yep. We got to make this whatever runtime it is, and it's already padded out, but we'll get to that too.
Oh, yes. Okay, so we're back to Mitchell and Lisa. They have arrived at the Boy Scouts house. They've got a tape measure. They're measuring the golden cylinder. The Geiger counter is kind of going off, and it's a little bit radioactive. Okay. So Lisa, investigates, feels up the cylinder, and she's like, it's not growing, it's opening. Mitchell's like, we got to keep it closed. And the Boy Scout's like, yeah, what if there's poison gas in there? We don't know. Let's keep it closed.
What's the best way to keep it closed?
You take a hammer And you hold the hammer by the business end and you whack the cylinder with the handle of the hammer gently to not damage the cardboard too much.
And then it just immediately starts. So is it green smoke that comes out of it?
No, it was regular, just like smoke.
Just white smoke?
Maybe
Okay.
white smoke. And then Mitchell's like, cover your face.
Yeah, so they cover their face with their hands for like 15 seconds, and then it's still smoking, and they're like, well, let's check this out. And they immediately uncover their faces and go and check this out.
I mean, like, evacuate the room at least. Open a window. Nothing. Okay, so...
It's like this movie was written by AI, but like 40 years earlier.
Yes, maybe that really is what happens.
She used her psychic powers to have AI write the script 40 years earlier.
So, the container opens. And what's inside but a little worm thing that is eerily reminiscent of a movie called Alien from, 1979. So it's 6-7 years before this. This worm leaps out and attaches itself to the Boy Scout and rips out and starts like going to town, like, digs into Boy Scout's jugular. There's blood everywhere. The Boy Scout and his attacker suddenly move from the dining room, which is presumably carpeted, to the kitchen, which has a tile floor.
Oh, that's just sense.
Cleanup was on the mind of the filmmakers for this scene.
Well, if they shot in sequence, they're like, well, we can't relive this bath water experience again. We'll have to go to the tile floor to clean up. And his neck is a wide open bleeding wound. But they're still calling 911, and they're like, oh no, he's going to be fine.
Okay, so in my notes, I was like, based on the dialogue and the acting and like Mitchell shook his head and blah, 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 I was like, oh, he's dead. But like a couple scenes later, he's alive. He survived. So yeah, I guess that must have been a rewrite.
Not to jump ahead, but the paramedics come and save him. And one of those paramedics is Mr. Fred Olen Ray himself in a cameo appearance with a wonderful mustache.
Okay, so he was the guy who like says like, don't touch it. It's a biohazard.
There were two guys. One was doing the worst chest compressions you've ever seen in any movie ever, and he was the other one.
Oh, okay. So the guy who was doing the chest compressions delivered the line.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Don't touch it. It's a biohazard. Another Easter egg is Lisa mentions the Boy Scouts address, and that is 439 Arkham Lane.
It's like, whoa, get it? Lovecraft or Batman? I think they're probably thinking Batman instead of Lovecraft, but who knows?
I guess so, yeah.
Now, was the Boy Scout Mayfield, or was Mayfield somebody else? Because I have Mayfield in my notes as one of the names of the characters, and I cannot remember which one that was.
It could have been. I had a really tough time catching his name because Boy Scout had the most dialogue with the first guy who got killed way back in the truck, and that guy's name was Cliff. But Cliff, like, even though Boy Scout was like, hey Cliff, do this, Cliff never returned the favor and mentioned Boy Scout's name. So sure, let's call him Mayfield.
And Cliff had no character. Cliff was just the first guy to get killed. I think he was Rookie, maybe was his character. I'm not really sure.
Doesn't matter.
All I had Mayfield in my notes because just of his importance to our whole overview of these direct-to-video movies, because he was in the very first direct-to-video like horror movie, which is Sledgehammer, which I don't know if we've talked about it before, but it is an amazing film. It's the Pryor brothers, David Pryor and Mark Pryor. They did Deadly Prey. Speaking of padded out, it has these establishing shots of a house that last literally 30 seconds or more. Like, you're just like, we're establishing this house, and we're still establishing this house. And there is a ghost that is sometimes like a Leatherface-style killer, and sometimes a little boy, and sometimes just a little ghost. And it's great and funny and boring and amazing all at once. But anyway, this is not a David Pryor podcast. This is a Fred Olen Ray podcast. Let's get back onto this story.
So Fred Olen Ray takes us to an exterior nighttime shot because we're still at night. Yeah. Maybe it's 11 p.m. by now. Who knows? Crickets are going. The alien is running through somebody's backyard. And then we zoom in on two guys who are sharing a drink around a fire. Uh-huh. I think the implication here is that they're homeless, but that's not really established. They've got a small grill and they've got a couple beers and they're talking about like how nice the night is. And
and how he marinates his food, which is important for some reason.
So he marinates his food in beer, and that's played as a joke, but they are grilling. And I know that a lot of people do like boil their sausages in beer before grilling them. So it's like, is it a joke, or is it just like this guy knows what's up? Who knows?
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
Then, like, some young kid with his dog comes in and they basically say like, oh, we're eating dog. And then I don't remember what happens to those characters afterward, because we're introduced to another like hobo character later on that something happens to.
That's a different guy. That's a different guy. This guy.
But why are we still introducing characters? This is more than halfway into the movie.
You don't think Jimmy and his dog Ranger are critical to the plot?
I mean, Ranger is one of the better actors in the movie, I think, Well,
it was notable that, like, we're in the middle of this scene and my husband turns to me and he's like, why is this happening? And he's usually very patient with movies. But yeah, okay, they're all, like, dead or something. We cut to a different scene because it doesn't matter. You're absolutely right. It doesn't matter.
This was also the dog's only movie appearance, so,
Oh, whose dog was it?
I don't know. Its name was Kimba, though, which was the nickname of a woman I used to work for. So Kimba and Lauren Crabtree, they got out of this business before it could ruin them.
Good for them. It was a good dog, though.
And they were both put down after biting somebody.
Stop. All right, next scene is there's an old-timey truck, like maybe from the 1950s, and an elderly couple are driving. The man's driving. His name is Jack. His wife, Rula, which is a name I had not heard before. She is carrying on a running monologue of complaints about Jack, his driving, his drinking and driving, and just that's the theme. So he doesn't even like tell her to shut up. It's just like, this is their life. This is what's going on. They are driving too fast because, again, Jack is drunk, and they hit the alien, which has been trying to cross the road.
Okay, so this is another Fred Olen Ray trademark here, is he seems to love old movies. For someone who seems to care so little about the art of movies, like he's just all craft, no art whatsoever, but he digs up these actors. When we watched the Billy Frankenstein movie, he got the guy from the old Disney movies. And in this case, he has Rula here, who is played by Carol Borland. That's why that name was on my head, Carol Borland. She was in Mark of the Vampire with Bela Lugosi, which is kind of like an ersatz sequel to Dracula, because it was even made by Todd Browning. And she made 3 or 4 or 5 movies in the 30s, took a nearly 50-year break from movies until she was dug up by Fred Olen Ray for the movie he made just before this, and then she made this movie as well. So, it's weird. It's so weird to have this lady was in this movie in 1937, and then she starts showing up again in movies in 1983.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's, it could have just been any old lady off the street, but no, instead, you've got to get good old Carol Borland. She has 6 IMDb credits, so I'm going to read them all. She is uncredited as a native girl, which has to be a horrible blackface thing, in a short called Wild Babies. She is uncredited in a short in 1933. That's her second thing. Then she's in Mark of the Vampire, which is her big break. She'll sign photos of that forever. In 1935, she has an uncredited appearance in Flash Gordon. So that's her entire career from 1932 to 1936. And then she shows up in Fred Olen Ray's Scalps in 1983 and this movie in 1985, and then retires for 10 more years.
Wow.
What a weird life.
Well, a weird career. I'm sure her life had nothing to do with this.
Okay, fair enough.
Back to the middle of the road where Jack and Rilla have run over the alien. Jack gets out to inspect what happened because they're afraid that they've hit a person.
Even worse, they hit a 7-year-old.
I know. It's terrible. So he gets really excited. He's like, we're going to be rich. They've got a monster and the monster's dead, so he feels safe. So he packs it up into the truck. He's like, Rula, we're gonna be rich. And she's like, okay, on board. We're gonna be rich. This is what's happening.
Your standard weapons can do no damage to this unstoppable killing machine, but some old people in a truck can just run it over.
Totally. So what do? They run back home. stash the body of the alien in their basement. They get dressed up because they think this is their
big break.
Yeah. And then they call the press. They're like, come out here, bring your photographers. We got a monster. And then they call the sheriff. And the sheriff, so like I guess a deputy answers the phone and then radios the sheriff, like whatever. So we've got like 2 law officers.
Oh yeah, we've got our 3rd female character.
Yes, the lady working dispatch keeps her shirt on the entire time.
So brave.
It's a choice. And Rula is also...
Oh, that's 4 then, because we've got boob lady, other boob lady, old lady, and dispatch lady. Feminism.
Yes. None of these characters speak to each other. There is no passing of any sort of Bechdel whisper whatsoever.
Do we see Rula's boobs? I don't remember.
No. She does do a costume change, but she's fully clothed the whole time. The sheriff doesn't believe that there is a real monster. He thinks that Jack's drunk again. They gotta haul him into the drunk tank. Blah, blah, blah. His doubting of the situation means like he goes into the basement to check out the monster, doesn't see anything. It's like, Jack, you're full of shit. Jack's like, what do you mean? Like, the monster's there. So Jack runs down to the basement and it's nowhere to be seen. So Jack's like, oh no, what's going on? What's going on? And then the alien, which is not dead, it was just knocked out, attacks and kills Jack. And boy, does the sheriff feel bad about that.
Well, I think the sheriff probably should have turned on some lights in the basement before he went looking for the monster in there, because he just wanders around there in the dark for, 3 seconds, says, there's no monster here, and then runs out.
Yeah, turn on the light, dummy.
Yeah. Jack's death is on your hands.
It really is. I mean, to serve and protect whom? The alien? The sheriff's name is Corey, in case you were wondering.
Well, that's important, because he's such an important character.
Back at the Boy Scouts home, we learn that the Boy Scout is going to be fine. Fredo and Ray and the other guy are doing chest compressions. Everything's great. A new guy shows up. His name is Decker.
There's a Decker, too? I don't even remember Decker.
Yeah, so Decker is in a suit. It's a slightly out-of-date suit because he's got the wide tie from the 70s.
Right.
He yells at Lisa and Mitchell for not apprehending the alien, and now there's more of a cleanup that needs to happen. He's angry. He yells at them, like, go get the alien, no more of these shenanigans. My name is Decker.
Yeah, he introduces his name, and then, that's his only scene, right?
Decker. Okay, so Lisa and Mitchell are renewed on their mission to apprehend the alien, and they start by looking at a dumpster. So they're led to this dumpster because Lisa's using her sensing power. She's like, I sense the aliens over around here, and they're now at a dumpster in the middle of the night. There's some noises coming from the dumpster. They go to investigate, and out pops this guy that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. He's the guy, hangs out by the dumpster. He pulls a poster of E.T. out of the dumpster, hangs it up on the dumpster and says, hey, I like you, Et. You're going to be my friend, or something along those lines. He's immediately killed by the alien, and then the alien's like, fuck this E.T. poster, and tears up the E.T. poster. Which, I mean, that is kind of like a standard thing to do in the horror movies of the 80s. Like in Evil Dead and, and one of the Nightmare on Elm Street things had a whole thing where they would show torn up versions of the other's poster in their movies. Just to kind of say, we're scarier than you. And this is just you're not going to compete with E.T., which is not a horror movie. It's our movie is so much better than E.T. And I'm no. Oh.
Yeah. The cinematic diss tracks, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I do want to just clarify that Lisa and Mitchell thought this was a red herring, and they left before the alien showed up, killed the guy.
3 seconds before, yeah.
Yeah, we've seen this. It's kind of funny that the child rips up the poster. And then we're back to Lisa and Mitchell.
You're watching a 7-year-old's tantrum on a poster. It's just silly.
It was worth a laugh. I thought it was cute, again, because the kid's doing a good job. Lisa and Mitchell, they've met up with more army guys. I was really trying to figure out what was going on. They're somewhere now.
Yeah, they just keep on ending up places, and we keep on introducing new things and new people.
So we're back with, I don't know, I think the senators and the general are there from the opening scenes. Rieger is there. He
Yeah.
was the other guy from the opening scene that, hasn't been in the movie since then.
But all of a sudden, Rieger is our main antagonist.
Right. And every time it seems like we're going to find out why or like what the backstory is, something interrupts them. So it's hinted at that Mitchell and Rieger are going to get into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Our cast of characters is several men and Lisa.
Yeah.
Most of the men are like, okay, we got our guns, we got our Geiger counter, we know the alien is in this building that we're in right now, we're gonna go get it. Lisa's like, okay, I'm coming with, and they're like, no, you're not, you're gonna stay behind, and with a guy they called J. Edgar Hoover because he was in a suit. So J. Edgar Hoover is going to guard Lisa and keep her safe while, the other guys go hunt down the alien. All right, so that's what's going on.
Now, are we already in that weird, mall location where there are hair dryers and just, boxes everywhere?
Uh-huh, yeah, that's where we are. Mm-hmm.
I should mention that Rieger is in another cult movie, a cult of maybe one person, Sawyer Gosnell. Because Rieger was in Hard Rock Zombies, where he played Ed, in that movie that I think we have Ed, Red, and Fred, or something like that are
okay.
But that's one of his big credits is, he's in Biohazard and he is in Hard Rock Zombies. So
wow, incredible.
Stunning cast of characters here.
We're closing in at the climax of the movie, and the alien starts picking off all these guys one by one. They're all getting killed in unlikely ways, artfully shot to not have the 7-year-old do any real damage, but we do get up-close shots of gory mannequin heads and acid-destroyed faces because I guess the alien has acid or something. It doesn't matter. They all die. Most of them die. Mitchell doesn't die.
I know at one point, Mitchell says, okay, so what's the plan? And Rieger says, well, you go down on him and I'll listen for the moaning. And I'm like, where did that come from? That is... And at this point, we're also introduced to, aliens that look like the face hugger just kind of wandering around, too.
Yeah, out of nowhere, they see a face hugger stuck to a box or something. They're like, what's that? Mitchell and Rieger are going to get into a fist fight for reasons. And then the face hugger leaps onto Rieger's face, hugs his face, and then Rieger's out for the count. And so Mitchell's like, instead of A, shooting the face hugger on Rieger, which, would be his character's preferred mode, or B, trying to kill the face hugger while preserving Rieger's life, Mitchell chooses option C, which is leave the room.
Yeah, he just pieces out. He's like, oh, well, I didn't like that guy anyway.
At this point, I'm like, oh, okay, so he's going to go find Lisa and blah, blah, blah. No. The alien comes after Mitchell next, and Mitchell, he actually gets out his gun and manages to shoot at the alien, which is more than some of our other guys have been able to do. The alien, who had been standing conveniently in front of an electrical panel, falls backwards into said electrical panel and is electrocuted. So where have we seen this scene before?
Critical Mass. It was the only memorable death scene in Critical Mass is somebody got shot and fell backwards into electrical wiring and went and died. It was funnier in Critical Mass, but I mean, there is a little bit of fun here because it's a 7-year-old alien dying.
He did a good job, and I think that Fred Olin Ray was right to try and reuse the scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a standard. You want people getting shot and falling backwards into electrical boxes as many times. It's not as prevalent as railing death, but, it should be. It should be.
There were railings. I was surprised we didn't see a railing death.
No, you have to have, stuntmen and then padding and stuff like that. You know how much money that is? Come on.
Oh,
we're at a $250,000 budget at most.
Okay, so here we are. The alien has been defeated. Presumably there's no more face huggers left. I don't know. Anyway, Mitchell, he goes back to Lisa, and Lisa, strangely, is standing over a dead guy in a suit, like this J. Edgar Hoover, who was supposed to be guarding her. And so he's like, oh, what happened? Oh my gosh.
Okay, so what we're expecting is the monster is never dead the first time you kill it. The monster's got to come back for one last thing and have a better death than falling backwards into some electricity going zazaza and dropping, because that was anticlimactic as fuck. But what happens instead?
Lisa was our true antagonist all along. She reveals verbally that the alien creature was a field test of her army.
Yeah,
So it's a weapon of war, and this whole situation was a field test to understand how it would perform under these circumstances against humans.
She delivers this emotionless, monotone monologue about how the tiny 7-year-old alien is actually the ultimate killing machine, but apparently not that great at being the ultimate killing machine since he fell backwards into some wires and died immediately.
But, I mean, he was doing a pretty fun job of it all the other times.
Yeah,
like, especially with Roger. He fucked Roger up. Anyhow, this is a huge plot twist. We're like, oh my gosh, what's your deal, Lisa? Why are you, such a traitor against humans? But alas, she is not. She opens her shirt. She's not wearing a bra, obviously. And then she opens up the skin of her chest in the same way that she opened her shirt. And it's all just a skin suit. She's a gross alien. Ah!
And she's got an adorable little lizard head that doesn't feel like it's in the right proportions at all after she tears apart her rubber fake breasts. And
it's all in extreme close-up because budget.
And then we literally cut to Mitchell. We hear the director say cut, and Mitchell says something along the lines of, I guess that's it? Are we done?
Mitchell's last line is, no, this can't be real. Then you hear, cut, I think that's it. And they kept in the actor playing Mitchell. He did I don't know what you call this gesture. What do you call this, Michael?
The full four fingers back and forth in front of the throat. So not like a slit your throat, but cheese it. I think that's the cheese it motion.
The cheese it. So it's just okay, yeah, so that's the cut. And then we cut to the credits.
Yeah, we cut to the credits, and there's still 10 minutes left in the movie, and you're like, huh? And then they show bloopers, but they're not even good bloopers. They're just people flubbing their lines.
I'm used to seeing these outtakes during the credits roll, and they're just really funny. But this credits had a rockabilly song.
Yeah, very evocative of our Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers song and our theme song, actually.
Yeah, so it was a rockabilly song and just outtakes.
Aldo Ray calling for his lines because they probably handed him the script 5 minutes before. It is Angelique Petitjean's wig being shaky during the makeout scenes. And you really get to see Fred Olen Ray's directing style because he's just stop, go again. No cut, no reset, no nothing. No, just say it again. Nope, say it again.
It reminded me a lot of just podcast editing where, if you really flub a line, you just pause and say it again because you can just cut that right out. And I was but that's not really how it works when you've got video and audio. But whatever, it's Fred Olen Ray. He knows what he's doing.
It's kind of amazing because it's again, the craft is usually fine. Things are in focus. You can tell kind of what's happening from second to second, just not from scene to scene. I think Fred Olen Ray really embodies the phrase of perfect is the enemy of good. But in his case, perfect is the enemy of getting done for the day and making your $15.
Anything else you want to highlight before we rate the movie?
Let's see. I just want to say most of this cast was also in The Tomb, which was, basically his movie right around them. A lot of them showed up in 3 or 4 movies he made from, 1980 to 1980, right before Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. I think we covered pretty much everything. There is not a lot to this movie. I feel like it could be a good companion piece to Alienator because it's almost the exact same movie as Alienator, where it's just a bunch of... We keep on introducing new characters who are wandering around the woods only to get killed off. I think Alienator is a lot more fun. And Alienator, the twist is that the alien woman is kind of good all along. And in this movie, it's that woman was a really bad alien all along. Although we still kind of have the twist in Alienator of that our alien friend is actually the bad guy. So there's a lot happening and nothing
variations
happening at
on
the
a
same
theme.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Fred Olen Ray is one of these painters, the greats that keep going back to the same scene and redoing it over and over again.
Yeah, like Scorsese with gangsters and Fred Olen Ray with falling backwards into electrical boxes. I mean, it's that thing.
We were talking most recently about the craft. So what's your rating of Biohazard on quality/production value?
Okay, God. So a lot, the monsters are okay. The alien suit is pretty good. The little rubber monsters are they're like maybe 2 steps above what you would see in Canucksploitation movie Things, which also has fake aliens running around like that.
It was better than Things, yes.
I'm going to be bold and say 6.5.
Okay. Bold choice.
Yeah, I'm going to be really bold.
What do you think in terms of sense making?
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. 3. I am being generous with a 3 in this movie because what the fuck is happening? Why are we here? Like, what is this guy's deal with the ham radio?
Ham radio is more important than sex with your hot young wife. I mean, they didn't even have any kids yet. They were still newlyweds. How about effort?
Oh, God. I think everybody was bad, but I don't think anybody was like, it wasn't like they had anything else left in the tank. You're not watching Usain Bolt run a 12-minute mile. You're watching like a bunch of middle-aged people running a 12-minute mile. So, this is a 5. I'm going to say 5. I think that's fair.
They did their best, and not everybody's best is the same.
You know what? I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to bump it up to 5.5 because that 7-year-old really waved his arms at people until they died.
He did such a good job. Entertainment.
I don't know. It wasn't as boring as like Critical Mass. Like there was a lot of, we're going to have another fight in a hallway. This movie was entertaining in that I had no idea what was happening or why it was happening. So this is a total 6, I think. This is
okay.
It's not at the level of a Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, and I think it might be more consistent than Alienator, but not nearly. It doesn't reach the high highs of Alienator.
What we've got here is for ratings is effort 5.5 out of 10, quality/production value 6.5 out of 10, entertainment 6 out of 10, and sense making 3 out of 10. How's that sound?
That sounds fine. I think I was a little too generous with some of those, but whatever. And I like giving you the 0.5s because it makes your math harder.
What are we going to watch next time?
We will watch our first request that we've ever had.
Ooh!
Which, during the middle of last season, one of the cast and or crew members of the movie Dire Wolf suggested we do that one, and last I checked it was still free on Tubi or Pluto or Viz Farm or Goofface or Johnny Appleseed or whatever these things are called. So we're going to watch Dire Wolf.
I'm excited.
And I have met David Brooks.
What?
Well, I waited on David Brooks years ago at the Medici in Hyde Park, which meeting David Brooks around a bunch of liberal Hyde Parkers is amazing. Because 3 separate people said to me, like, oh, do you know who that is over there? That's David Brooks. I, of course, don't agree with anything he says, but sometimes I hear him on NPR. It was almost verbatim from every crunchy, middle-aged Hyde Parker that I talked to that day. It was great.
A local celebrity sighting at the Medici.
Yeah. Adequate tipper.
Amazing.
Anyway, real wrap-up. We're gone. Bye.
Bye. Going Over Our Freds was created and produced by us, Michael Kennedy and Meredith Halsey.
Our theme was composed and performed by Justin Nozick. Find more music for him at Bandcamp. Search for The Plague Physicians.
Artwork by Michael Kennedy. Special thanks to everyone who helped make the season possible, including the friends and family who let us watch these movies instead of this year's Academy Award nominees. And thank you for listening.
If you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to Going Over Our Freds on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter at Goof Podcast, and find us on Instagram at Going Over Our Freds.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. For questions, comments, and complaints, email us at goingoverourfreds@gmail.com.
Thanks.
A what tipper?
He was an adequate tipper. Not as good as Obama.
Adequate.
Better than Bobby Rush.
Got it. Who would you say was the best tipper of your celebrity patrons?
If memory serves, Cynthia Nixon was a really good tipper.
Yeah.
Yeah, her kid went to UChicago, so she was in for brunch a bit.
Nice.